WBUR. I'm also delighted to welcome all of you who are watching tonight's program online, including those of you who have gathered at the John F. Kennedy Hyannis Museum and at the Canadian Museum of Human Rights. We look forward to a robust question and answer period this evening, and when Q&A starts, we would invite those of you who are joining us in person tonight to proceed to the microphones in the aisles so you can ask your questions. If you are in the overflow seating in the library but have a question, our staff can help you proceed to the main hall to reach these microphones at that time as well. Ms. Copeland has kindly agreed to sign books after tonight's forum. Our bookstore has copies of her most recent book available for purchase if you are interested. After the forum, if you would like to join the book signing, you may exit by the main back door of the Smith Hall, by the woman waving her hands back there. And if you would not like to attend the book signing, you may find it faster to exit by the back door of Smith Hall, and our team will help you exit the building right back there in that corner. This year marks the centennial of John F. Kennedy's birth, and our work on the celebration of this centennial has inspired us to consider, as an organization, how best to honor the regard President and Mrs. Kennedy placed on the enduring and essential role of the arts in our national life. The Kennedys made celebrations of cultural excellence an important part of their life in the White House, and President Kennedy once said that he looked forward, quote, to an America which will steadily raise the standards of artistic accomplishment and which will steadily enlarge cultural opportunities for all of our citizens. I'm now honored to introduce one of the great artists of our time, Misty Copeland. Whose exceptional work and deep commitment to making dance a more inclusive field continue to inspire audiences throughout the country and around the world. She is a principal dancer with the American Ballet Theatre and the first African-American woman ever promoted to this position. I expect more applause for the next one, too. She is the author of 3 books and has worked with many charitable organizations. Thank you. I'm also delighted to introduce our moderator for the evening, Meghna Chakrabarti, and I always do that, I'm so sorry. Meghna Chakrabarti, if I say it fast, host of WBUR's Radio Boston. Meghna's distinguished reporting has garnered awards from the Associated Press and the Radio Television News Directors Association, among many others. Misty and Meghna, thank you for joining us tonight, and welcome.
It is my absolute privilege to be here tonight with all of you. This is a great-looking crowd. Thank you all for coming tonight. And of course for being given the privilege to share the stage with you, Misty. I just have to say, the opportunity to have a conversation with someone through her talent, perseverance, hard work, is bringing grace and beauty to the stage and an expression of human capacity, artistic capacity to everyone's lives through your performance every day. We need more of that in the days that we're in, and so I just wanted to say that thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk with you about it, because it's a great break from the other travails that are all weighing heavily on our minds. So let's celebrate instead tonight. Now, if you also see me doing this frequently throughout this evening, it's because I'm sitting next to someone who has perfect posture and alignment all night long. So forgive me if I'm suddenly self-conscious about how I'm like stooped over all the time. So I expect everyone to have a perfect spine tonight if you can. Misty's written about this. It's good for your health. So much to talk about. Can I just start with a really basic question?
Okay.
Have you always felt, has your body always felt the need to move when you heard music or any kind of rhythm? Is it something that's been with you from the beginning?
This is a very intimate detail, but I was born breeched, so I came out butt first with my toes, my hands, fingers touching my toes, folded in half. So yes, I think I was always moving and needed to feel that sense of connection with myself, and that definitely was motivated by music from a very early age. You know, I'm constantly saying, you know, I think a lot of people, when they hear music, they want to sing, and that was not me. I wanted to move, I wanted to create, I wanted to choreograph. Even before I knew what that meant, I wasn't exposed to the arts in any way, not to the classical arts, not to formal dance. And I had this innate need to move and create. When I heard music, it was this escape for me and creative outlet.
Escaping from what?
I think something that I don't know if I was completely aware of, the chaos that was in my life and in my household from day to day, moving from, you know, town to town and home to home, and having different male figures in my life. And I don't think that it wasn't something that my mother did with me or my family did. We didn't sit down and talk about these things, but movement and dance was a way for me to kind of release all of this tension, and also for me to have a voice. You know, growing up in a household where I was one of 6 children, I was the silent, quiet one, and it was my way of having you know, a way of speaking through my body. And to this day, I feel like I'm most comfortable when I'm on the stage, even though there may be thousands of people watching me. I feel so at ease and at home and safe when I'm up there.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I'm sure so many people here know your story, but I think it's worth hearing a little bit more about it, because you were living, as you were saying, with your mother and your brothers and sisters in a motel at one period of time.
Right. I was very fortunate to have found ballet pretty soon after we had moved into the motel, me and my 5 siblings and my mother. I think if I didn't have that artistic outlet, I don't know how I would have survived during that time. I was already such an introverted child, and when we got to that point, I feel like I don't know what I would have done. I think I may have fallen into the wrong crowd or just kind of got lost. And I think maybe a month or 2 into living at the motel, I was discovered at my Boys and Girls Club in Southern California, and that's where I took my first ballet class on a basketball court. And every, you know, second that I was not in ballet class and I was home at the motel, I was outside using the railing to give myself ballet class and just going over the few steps that I knew. And it was something that I'd never experienced in my life up until that point. And I really feel like it saved me during that really critical time at 13 years old.
So there's so many remarkable aspects to this story. I mean, we could go in any direction, but you were 13, and so many people who go into dance professionally start much earlier, right? They may have been dancing for 6 or 7 years by the time they hit 13, but it seems as if when your innate talent was recognized, it immediately unlocked something in you.
Right. I think that I was waiting for something structured and disciplined like that. And that's why I feel like the arts are so important for children. I think that whether or not they go on to become a professional or use that experience to, you know, in their future jobs, that it's going to enrich their lives in some way. And I feel like it did that immediately for me. I never experienced such structure in my life ever. And I think I was just craving it, and I immediately just held on to this. I didn't really connect to anything in school. I mean, being, a Virgo and being a hard worker, I wanted to succeed. So I would work really hard and I would memorize things and get good grades, but I wasn't really learning. I wasn't learning in a way that I needed to learn. And I feel like the arts and dance was that kind of throughway for me, and it's allowed me to become the woman that I am because of the exposure that I've had, because of the tools that I've learned from being a part of the ballet world. So I think that at 13 years old, though it's late, I was hungry and I was ready for it. So I just moved really quickly.
I mean, quickly is an understatement, right? Because it was what, 3 months after you started that you could stand on Pointe?
Right.
3 months.
Yeah.
How many people here are in ballet? How many people here dance? We've got a good group here. 3 months is kind of amazing, right?
It was very quick. I was so fortunate to have a teacher who, she was a white woman, but she understood the lack of diversity in classical ballet, which I wasn't aware of at the time, but that's how she found me. She was trying to find more diverse students. She was trying to bring in people that didn't have the opportunities and the means and the exposure to classical ballet, and that's how she found me at my Boys and Girls Club. But she had belief in me, and it's not something that I would recommend to a lot of young dancers that at 3 months into taking your first ballet class to put on a pair of ballet Pointe shoes. But she felt that I was strong enough and ready, and so she knew that this was a path for me to become a professional, and she knew that we had to move quickly because most professionals start from the ages of 16 and 19. So I ended up training for 4 years before I went professional.
Yeah. So your first teacher that you're talking about, Cynthia Bradley, I saw an interview that she gave with 60 Minutes. And she was talking about how the first thing that she noticed about you was just your innate ability to make perfect lines. I mean, looking back now, did you recognize that? But maybe you didn't because you were new to all of it. But did you have to work hard to achieve that sort of fluidity that she talked about, that she saw in you immediately?
I think that my body was naturally flexible, and so, she could kind of put me in a pose and it was the right line. But I think that my strength was not what my body could naturally do. I think that it was my understanding, it was my ability to watch and mimic, which can only take you so far, really, but it took me far. Being able to see my teacher and see what she was doing, and then look in the mirror and be able to copy that. And kind of retain all of this information. But in the long run, as all of you dancers know, this is something you have to start young, because your body has to build this muscle memory and this strength so that it's second nature, so that when you do become a professional and you have all of these other things to worry about, rehearsing 8 hours a day, learning choreography, remembering it, becoming an artist, developing, you can't be thinking about, the technique. And so that's why we train for so long. But there were obstacles once I became a professional, and holes in my technique since I had only trained for 4 years. But I think that was really a strength of mine, was just being able to see, mimic, and hold on to that information.
Yeah. So since you started at 13, and as you said a moment ago, it was dance was really an escape for you, a way to express yourself that you didn't have before. I'm wondering, at what point in time did you realize that this was a world in which, that there weren't that many people of color, or at least, and not that many people of color who were given the supports to rise in the way that you were?
Yeah, there were times throughout my training where, I clearly was the only black girl in the class. I remember going away to San Francisco Ballet Summer Intensive and being the only black woman in my class. And I don't know that I thought much about it, but I thought I felt more like an outsider because I had only been dancing for a year and a half at the time than anything. It was once I became a professional dancer that it was a negative thing. It turned into a negative thing, and people were talking about it around me, and they were bringing up, the fact that I could be the first African-American female soloist in over, 2 decades, and there's never been a black woman, and so all of these things, it was like, never thought about this, and it made me really look around, and it made me want to learn more about my history as a black woman in the classical ballet world. It's not something that's lended to us. It's not, you can't open up a book about ballet and learn that history. So that became frustrating, but at the same time, I wanted to know more about it, and it really changed the path for me, I think, in terms of what I wanted to do with my career and what I wanted to leave behind. It stopped being so individual, and and as dancers and as artists, it has to be about developing yourself, and you spend so much time working on your body and your technique, but it was like, this is so much bigger than me. The lack of diversity, the lack of recorded history for black ballet dancers, and so that became kind of the bigger picture of what I feel my purpose is.
Yeah. So I want to talk about sort of more the professional significance or the cultural significance of your professional career, but if we can, just for a minute, I mean, the challenges that you had about with your family. I want to talk about what that was like for you, because for most people here probably know, but for those who don't, there was a point in time where you lived with Cynthia Bradley, right? I mean, she tells this story about how she didn't know that you and your family were living in the motel.
Yeah. From a young age, I got really good at keeping secrets, and I didn't know that it was necessarily a negative thing. I didn't want to have to address people asking questions. I didn't want confrontation. Like, that's just who I was as a young girl. I wanted everything to be okay, and I just wanted, I think, again, because there was so much chaos in my household, like, that's just another thing I didn't want to have to deal with. So I became really good at just, either not saying anything, and even my ballet teacher that I was training with, she had no idea that we were on food stamps and didn't really, I wasn't eating enough, and we were living in a motel, and I was taking a 2-hour bus ride back and forth from school or to get to ballet class, and I just felt it was best if she just worried about, training me, and then I dealt with all of the other stuff. And I feel like I grew up quick almost in a way because I was exposed to so much and dealing, responsible for so much at such a young age. But there was a breaking point when I told her that I could no longer dance because it was too much responsibility. My mother had 5 other children that she was trying to raise and keep in school, and this was just an extracurricular activity to her. So once I told her I could no longer dance, she said, well, can I at least drive you home? And it was like, no, you can't drive me home. And she was like, I'm driving you home, and that's when she found out I was living in a motel.
The way she tells this story, she dropped you off, and then she was driving away, and she said she was about halfway back to either the studio or her home, and she just decided to turn around and go right back to the motel, knocks on the door, and what did she ask your mother?
I don't know where I would be if that never happened. She turned around and she came back, and she asked my mother if I could live with her. And I was like, what? Like, that was not something that I ever considered, knew was normal, for a dancer to go off to a boarding school or go off and train. And she really broke it down and explained it to my mom in that way, that she had done that at 15 years old. And I I think that it was just a lot for her to really not just see the motel, but see me sitting inside. And there was no bedroom, and I'm sitting on the floor and just feeling like this is it, you know, like it's either this is what her life is going to be, or I can change it and she can change the ballet world. And luckily, my mom said okay, and that was the beginning of everything.
Yeah. And so you lived with the Bradleys for three years?
3 years, yeah.
And then there was another set of challenges, right? Because, I mean, I'm looking at this both from the perspective of, you know, your life and your career and the opportunities that that Cynthia gave you, but also I'm looking at it from the perspective of your mother as well, right? So it's an amazing thing that she said, yes, give my daughter this opportunity, but also as a mother, she wanted to see you again, right? She wanted to have you back in her life, and that caused some tension.
Yeah, it's difficult, and you know, I understand how important it is for the parents of these dancers to also be educated and know what goes into training and raising a dancer. And it's a big part of Project Plie, a diversity initiative that I helped to start with American Ballet Theatre. Like, it's not just about training these dancers, but educating their parents as well and really including them. My mom was not aware of any of that. So I understood, I understand now, looking back, her fears and, you know, feeling like she was losing me. You know, I was with my teacher all week, and then I would come home on the weekends, and then as I matured and was offered more opportunities, I would end up performing on weekends, so sometimes I wasn't coming home, so it was just kind of a breaking point for my mother. It was like our family, keeping our family intact and having my child grow up and having a normal life is more important than this ballet thing, which I don't think she really understood where it was going to go.
I mean, there was a court fight, right? Because you wanted emancipation, right, and she, of course, wanted to retain custody of you as her child, but that got resolved.
Yes.
At what point in time do you think your mother and your siblings, did they fully come to realize what dance was for you and what the possibilities that it was going to bring to your life?
I think they're still learning. I mean, everyone has always been so supportive and so proud, but I think every opportunity and every time they see me speak and every time they see me appear on something or they see me perform, it's always shocking. Because I just don't think that they really, I mean, I don't think that I ever truly believed that I was going to be living this life. And it's shocking to me, and I'm living it. So I understand being removed from it. It's a huge change from the life I grew up with. So I understand why it's so, you know, kind of like, wow, this is your life now. It's pretty crazy.
And I'm sure they've seen you perform.
Yeah. They're extremely supportive. But every time they see me perform, it's still like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're like. My nickname was Mouse. I was like this little mouse, and they're like, I can't believe you're up there in front of all of these people performing. It's insane.
And leading the company as well. Well, so was it a year after you went back to live with your family that you had that scholarship to the American Ballet Theatre?
Yes.
Yeah. Just a year later, the summer program.
Yeah. It was a year later.
Yeah.
My first summer away from after moving out of Cynthia's home. I was offered a full scholarship and room and board and airfare and everything to come to New York City and train with American Ballet Theatre School, and that was really my ultimate dream. Living with Cynthia, that was what she introduced me to. I think in the back of her mind, she knew that American Ballet Theatre was really a place for me as a black ballerina where I would be accepted and I could thrive potentially. And so I feel like that's why she really was preparing me in that way and educating me on the history of the company.
So what was that like, of that transition and becoming, going to the ABT school? Yeah.
I couldn't wait. I went away to the summer intensive program when I was 16 years old, and they ended up offering me a position in the studio company, which is ABT's junior company. There's 12 dancers in the company, 6 girls and 6 boys, and that wasn't supposed to happen. It was like, what? This is happening already? And they were like, yes, like, let's go. Like, you're gonna move here in a month. And my mother was like, no. You're not. I want you to finish high school. I want you to go to prom. I want you to be normal for once. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm saying no to Kevin McKenzie and American Ballet Theatre. And they offered me again the following year. So at 17 years old, I ended up moving to New York City and apprenticing with the company and on a tour to Asia when I was only 17 years old. And it was just... it was shocking, but I wasn't afraid. I was ready. I think I moved to New York City the day after I graduated high school, and I could not wait.
So, did you always have this voice in your head, this drive that said, I'm going to be principal one day, or I can be? Mm-hmm.
It started out at the front of my head.
In the front of your head, okay.
Slowly,
as it should be.
Yeah, and slowly, you know, over the course of my career, it, you know, became further and further back an echo. You know, I think when I just maturing and experiencing professional life, and again realizing, you know, 10 years into my career, I'm the only black woman in this company, you know, for 10 years. It made me be more realistic and just look at things in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I needed to talk about my experiences and really share the history and the voices of so many black women who have been in my position or hadn't been given an opportunity to stand in my shoes at American Ballet Theatre. And I think once I found that identity, it gave me strength and power, and it made me a better artist because of all of it. I think I just understood myself more, and it made me a stronger and better dancer.
So, I mean, let's talk in a little bit more detail, if we can, about race and ballet and the world of ballet. Because I saw this really wonderful video that you did with President Obama, a Time magazine influencers video. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's incredible. And there's something that you said in that I want to ask you about. It's one line. You were saying that how there were times where you didn't want to wear makeup to lighten your skin or makeup to change the contours of your nose, for example. And then the video goes on, and I wanted to stop it. So I'm going to ask you, I mean, were you saying at that moment that you have been asked to do that? Just not for the sake of the character that you're dancing, but just to lighten the shade, the tone of your skin?
Yeah, it's really a part of the history and tradition of classical ballet. When you think of certain ballets that are known as the white ballets, you think of La Bayadere in the second act, the Shades, the Land of the Shades, or you think of the second act of Swan Lake, and you have all of the swans. And when you're a part of the corps de ballet, they want everyone to be uniform and most likely white. And when you stand out, you know, they want you to blend in some way. I mean, there's a fine line between making your skin look matte and not have that shine so that you look otherworldly and you know, like you're in Giselle and you're supposed to be like a ghost. But I felt, and it helped me to feel like I wasn't alone when I watched the documentary of the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo and heard the words from Raven Wilkinson's own mouth, you know, in the 1950s. And it was literally like, all that time hadn't even passed. It was like I'm experiencing exactly what she's experienced at the time, being the only black woman in the company. And, you know, that's when I felt empowered to just say, like, well, why can't I just use my own color and put more powder on, and so that I'm, and they were just kind of like, okay, and they just kind of let it go, and I was like, oh, I should have asked her that a long time ago.
Well, so the very fact that that the reaction was, oh, okay. To me, on the one hand, that's great. There was no resistance when you brought it up. But on the other hand, it's also an indication of how so much is just presumed. Mm-hmm. Am I misinterpreting that? I mean, that there are certain cultural mores in the world of ballet that are just presumed that perhaps end up being, I don't know, structural impediments for minority dancers who want to be in that world.
And again, I'm so fortunate to be in a company where the artistic director, I feel, is very open, and he's open to listening to this type of dialogue. And there are so many companies to this day that still aren't. And I have friends who are in other companies that they would not be allowed to, they wouldn't be told, oh, okay, you can do that. Like, it's like, no, you have to do it this way or you can leave. And that's the reality of what it is to be a black dancer today, a black classical dancer. It's real, and that's why you don't see so many in the top companies in the world.
So there's something else which I've heard you've been told, which honestly flabbergasts me, and that is that there have been times, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but there have been times that you've been told that you don't have a ballet dancer's body. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
I mean, to this day, I still hear it. And it's scarred me. It's made me, hate myself. There have been so many levels of, feelings and transitions of, being on your own at 17 years old in New York City and trying to figure out who you are as a person and fit into this world and being told that, it took me a long time to understand what these people were saying. And
what were they saying?
That you have brown skin and you don't belong, and that's why you don't have the right body. Because I know that I have a similar body to a lot of professional dancers, and to this day, professional dancers are much more athletic than they used to be, and they have busts and they have hips, and if those dancers are white, they're not criticized for the same thing. And so it took me some time to accept and realize that, and try and decipher those words. But yeah, to this day, I can go on a blog and read that I have the most hideous body and I'm fat. So, it's about, understanding people's intentions, not reading those things, and just, trusting in yourself and doing the work and being your healthiest self. And that was a big part of creating this book, Ballerina Body, was that it's not about transforming and making yourself look like someone else, or look like, Gelsey Kirkland or Sylvie Guillaume. It's not about that. It's about being your healthiest self and making your body the best that it can be. And that's what I've learned throughout my journeys as a professional dancer.
I'm having difficulty getting over my reaction, which is how preposterous it is that anyone would find any reason to criticize you. Am I right? Sorry. I mean, to me, I wanted, and thank you, first of all, thank you for your candor. I'm really grateful for it, because for people like you who, again, through hard work and talent and perseverance and the support of the mentors that you had, people of color who rise to the very tops of their field, also have a dual responsibility put on them by the rest of us, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, people look up to you, they want to be like you, you're blazing a trail. You're also carrying the weight of the criticisms of the culture as well. And that's got to be hard sometimes. I mean, do you ever feel that, like that you're under an even more powerful microscope?
Absolutely.
Because of who you are?
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that pressure?
one day at a time. You know, it's difficult when, at this point in my career, when people, you know, assume that I am where I am because of the celebrity or all of the other things that I've worked so hard to kind of build up the ballet culture and bring them with me, you know, with Under Armour and with Seiko and with Dannon and all, Barbie, all of these amazing opportunities I have. I want to be a representation for ballet in the best way that I can. And to me, it's about uplifting and bringing more people into the ballet world. And so with all of that, of course, comes, you know, should she really be a principal dancer? You know, is she just there to sell tickets? Is she really worthy of it? And there's just so much criticism that comes with it. And at this point, it's like, I just can't really read it all because it's hard to separate all of those things. And I understand it's hard for people to separate those things. You know, they're not just looking at me as an artist up there, they're looking at me as Misty Copeland and all that comes with it. So it can be difficult. You know, at the end of the day, I want to be a good ballet dancer, and that's what I want to be remembered for. And so it's difficult. You know, I'm so proud of all that I've accomplished and all of the opportunities that I have, but sometimes the things get muddled.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think it might take or will take for us to get to the point where Misty Copeland or, you know, another young woman or young man can just be seen for their artistry?
I think time, perseverance, like all I can do is continue to put in the work hard, go out there performance after performance and be present and do my best and show that I'm worth it. And bring something different to the culture. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a unique artist and be honest and present on the stage with every performance that I give. And I want people to come and to feel something. And that's why we are a part of this world, you know, to bring people together, to have an escape from their lives and from what's going on in the world, and that's the beauty of it. It's not about, you know, how things appear and how many tickets you sell. It's how you make people feel.
Yeah. So, I mean, dancers already face so much pressure because about how they look. And their bodies and their physiques. I just wanted to read a little quotation from your book, Ballerina Body. It's just really powerful. You talk about how when you found the right combination of food and exercise and training that really worked for you, you wrote, "Not only did I feel fitter, not only was my body sleeker and more powerful, but I also had come to a realization that was more important than any other. I came to understand, to accept, that all along my body had been perfect for me." So, I mean, we have a lot of young dancers here today, this evening. I mean, how would you encourage them to come to that same realization?
Yeah, you know, it's difficult when we're in front of a mirror every day. But that mirror is not there for us to criticize our bodies in a negative way. It's there for us to be able to see our line, to realize if our hips are square, if we're not sickling, you know, all of these things to improve ourselves, not to put ourselves down. And it's really difficult when you're a part of something that over time throughout history has become, you know, there's so many negative things, you know, attached to, you know, being a ballet dancer. You know, when people, hopefully not to this day, but, you know, a lot of the time in the past when people think of ballet dancers, they think, oh, they don't eat, they have eating disorders, they're this, they're that. And I think that it's important for us to understand that we are athletes, and that's why I emphasize that so much, not to make us seem less than or that athletes are better, but we have to take care of our bodies in the same way that athletes do. It's how we fuel our bodies, it's what we're putting into it, that's, you know, what keeps us dancing for a long period of time and hopefully not getting injured as often as sometimes it just happens. But it's so important for us to remember that being healthy and fit is going to make us the best dancers that we can be.
Yeah. I'm just doing a quick time check here. So in about 5 or 6 minutes, I will reluctantly give up this stage and allow you folks to answer questions. So in a couple minutes, if you want, there are 2 microphones here in the aisles. Go ahead and, again, in a couple minutes, line up behind the microphones, and we will take as many questions as we can. And when we get to that point, I will remind you that a question ends with a question mark. No soliloquies or statements, please. So I want to actually just, in the last couple of minutes we have, there's a few more points I wanted to touch on with you, Misty. You have an incredible mental toughness, too. And to me, one of the moments in your life that really epitomizes that had to do with a terrible injury that you had, 2014? Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell us that story?
Yeah. That's so much, another part of being a dancer that a lot of people, especially in the United States, don't really understand or acknowledge. It's that same mental strength that professional athletes have, that we have to have, and I think even stronger, to deal with the criticism, to go on stage no matter what you're feeling and going through and what your body's going through, and put on a performance and be happy and be an artist and become a character. We can't go out there and grunt like a football player and show that we're in pain and, or any other athlete. It's even more mental preparation and perseverance and strength, and injury's a big part of that. I was given an opportunity in my late career, as a soloist. I'd been a soloist for I think 5 years. I'd been in the company for maybe 11 years, and it was the first time I was given a principal role in a classical ballet,
Firebird, right?
in the ballet The Firebird, and it was like, this is my opportunity. This is kind of it. I'm I don't know, 28, 29 years old, and that's very late for someone to be given that opportunity to become a principal dancer. So it was like, I am going all the way. And over the course of rehearsing the ballet, I started to develop fractures in my tibia. And I knew that it was not good, but I didn't want to tell anyone because I knew that I would be taken out of the rehearsal process and I would not perform and I would never be given the opportunity again. So I kept my mouth shut and I danced on it for maybe 6 months. I ended up doing I think 3 performances altogether of the Firebird before I had to pull out, and almost a full season during the spring of doing other ballets. But I had already started working with my manager Gilda at the time, and she was like, "What is it that you want to do? Like, why do you need me?" And it was like, I want to bring more diversity to ballet. I want to bring more people into the theater, and we'd gotten to a point in my last performance that I ended up giving of the Firebird where, the theater was full of brown people, and we'd never seen anything like it. And it was like, that's what's getting me through this. That's why I'm doing this. And that's what somehow got me through that
How
last
much pain were you in?
It was, walking was painful, standing was painful. I remember going home that night after my last performance, and I walked, limped to the subway and just standing there. I remember being on the subway and just saying, that's it. I think that's the end of it for me.
So, I looked up the details about this. She's being very modest. You had 6 stress fractures in your tibia, one of them which went almost all the way through the bone.
3 of them.
3 of them, okay. But I read that the doctor said you could see the fracture almost entirely through your bone. Mm-hmm. You had to have a plate put in.
Yeah.
And you had to have bone marrow taken from your hip and put into the fracture site to help heal it.
Yeah.
That was the extent of the injury that you were dancing on.
Yes. Yeah.
It was supposed to be a career-ending one.
Right. Even I heard those words from maybe 6 or 7 doctors, and I wasn't going to stop until I found a doctor that was like, "No, we can do that."
Yeah. And that doctor was right, because you didn't give up.
Yeah. There was, again, I think seeing in my last performance, seeing theater filled with those people, it was like, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's what kept me going through that process of almost a year of recovering, when it should have been the end. You know, it was like, this can't be the end of what can be the future for so many, you know, minority dancers.
Yeah.
That, you know, they can look up to someone on the stage and see themselves through this person, and that's what really got me through.
And it was just the next year that you were named principal.
I think it
June?
was 2 years after that. I returned.
A year or two?
Yeah.
Well, so I just have a little lightning round for you,
Okay.
just for fun, because there's so much more that we could talk about. I just have a couple little quick lightning round questions for Misty. So now's the time. If you have a question, go ahead and line up behind the microphones, and I will get to you. So this is just a fun little lightning round question.
Okay.
Which ballet move do you love the most or hate the most?
You know, it changes all the time. And this is supposed to be a lightning round, but I love long answers. I used to hate jumping, and I used to love to do adagio work. And now I like jumping, even though it can hurt sometimes still with my shin. And I don't like fouettes.
Which, I was like nodding heads here. Say, oh yeah. Which piece or show or performance do you love doing the most? And which one do you perhaps not love so much?
I don't know that there's any that I really don't love. I love a challenge, but my favorite, I think, has become the more story, like really heavy ballets where there's a lot of acting for the lead. So I think Juliet and Giselle are my favorites. Don Quixote has been a challenge for me just because, again, jumping has not been as easy since I've come back from my surgery, and that's like all that Kitri does is jump.
Any costumes that you've loved, or any costumes that you would have rather have danced without?
I love Gamzati's costumes, all of them in La Bayadere. I love the Firebird, I would say, just because you're in like a unitard and you have like this massive tail that's really difficult to dance quickly with, and this like big headpiece, and it's just really hard to dance with. Yeah.
And finally, I guess, you know, when the company is in season, which you're going back in September.
Yes.
What's sort of a typical day like for you?
I'm up at 8 a.m. I'm in ballet class from 10:15 to 11:45, and then I'm in rehearsal from 12 to 7. Sometimes I get a break from 3 to 4, but sometimes I don't. And then, on my days off, I'm doing interviews and photo shoots and shooting commercials and things like that. So that's like pretty much what my days are like.
It's pretty busy. And what's one piece or show that you haven't yet done that you would love to do?
Probably something more like dramatic. Again, I feel like with age and my old age, I want to like do these more dramatic roles. So I'd say like Manon, probably. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we could ask a lot more lightning round questions, but look at the line already. So we have about 20-ish minutes for questions. So let's try to get through as many folks as possible. So give us your name, please, if you could, and your question. And we'll start over here on this side, and we'll bounce back and forth, okay?
Okay. My name is Zaria, and
Hi.
how do you manage your dance life and your personal life?
Well, I'm very lucky to be married to a man who understood how important my career was to me, and work and ballet has always come first, and that's how I've managed it. You know, this is not something that you can do for very long, and it takes so much sacrifice and dedication, and commitment that it wasn't something that I was going to throw away to go hang out with my friends on like a Friday night. Like I knew that in the long run it would be more worth it and for me. And you know, you can meet friends at work.
What do you want to? I mean, what do you want to do with your influence and your position after your time on stage does come to an end?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to, you know, have a foundation at some point. I'd love to be involved in continuing the conversation of the lack of diversity and inspiring more people of color to get involved in classical ballet and make this really, really a part of our history that we can tell and we can see in books.
Over here, please.
Hi, my name's Ellen. I came all the way from the Cape to see you, and you're wonderful.
Thank you.
You're absolutely wonderful. The thing that occurred to me, you're talking about the problems in ballet as a black woman, but I'm wondering, because it resonates with white women too, in the corporate world or any kind of work world, do you think if you were a guy who's black, you would have had the same kind of issues? Because I hear a lot of jealousy going on too with your story. People were very jealous that you could do what you could do. That's just a thought of mine.
It's a very different path for a black man. I mean, I don't know what year it was. If it was in the 60s that Arthur Mitchell was, you know, the first black principal dancer with New York City Ballet, and then he went on to create Dance Theater of Harlem. But the ballet is all about the ballerina and the woman, and so therefore it's easier for a black man to stand behind a white woman.
Interesting. Over here, please.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Kiara, and my question is, how did you prepare yourself to be on point?
To be on point. So I was taking about 3 ballet classes a day. I was working really hard. I don't know if I took any days off at that point. So my teacher was like working on like fast drive to build the muscles and the strength that I needed. But at the same time, I was very like strong naturally. Like all of my siblings, like we're known for having like the Copeland calves, and they're like big and they're strong. So I kind of came into it like ready to go.
Hi, my name is Kaya. I was wondering what motivates you?
I'd say that like on most days it's like seeing young dancers that I've been in their shoes and they're looking up to me, and to be able to inspire them, influence them in a positive way, especially in the world that we live in today where there I feel like are so many negative role models out there that you scroll through Instagram and you're expected to be them or be like them. And I think that it's important for us to have positivity and especially as a black woman to be a positive role model. And to me, that's what pushes me.
Yeah. Over here, back over here.
My name is Jamara, and my question is, when you were on point, like, did you have to stay at the bar? Because when I'm on point, like, I have to stay at the bar for certain things.
You should start that way. Yeah, I started out just doing point work at the bar and really getting strong and making sure that my feet were in the right alignment and not sickled and really over the box. And it's important to get all of that into your body before you let go and go off and dance on your own. It's important so that you don't injure yourself. I did the same thing, girl.
Over here, please.
Hi, my name is Sadie, and my question is, did you ever want to like give up because you thought it was like too hard?
Yeah, there have definitely been times. I think as a young dancer, I didn't experience that. I think also starting late, I didn't go through that period where I felt really burnt out. But as a professional, I definitely experienced that. But a lot of it had to do with me just feeling like I didn't fit in, and I didn't feel like I was ever going to be accepted and I was ever going to progress. And I had amazing people in my life that were there to like push me and to let me know like, you have something extremely special, and and just to continue to work. And Arthur Mitchell was actually one of those people that was there during that time when I just felt really down and like I didn't belong. And it's like, if he could do what he did, I think I'll be all right.
Yeah. So the importance of mentors and support system.
It's been a huge part of, I think, why I'm still standing today.
Back over here.
My name is Katrina. I was wondering what motivated you to write all of your books.
I never thought I would write a book ever. Again, like being so quiet and introverted as a child, I didn't speak and I didn't want to share my story or anything with anyone. But I always wrote in a diary or in a journal, and to this day I have every single one of them like on my bookshelf from like the age of 16, you know, and but I was approached initially with the first book to write a memoir, and I was like, what? Who wants to read that? Like,
I can think of a few people.
And it was kind of terrifying, but luckily, like, I feel like that has always been this very cathartic thing for me, was writing and not having to speak. And it's the same thing with dance. It's like I can express myself without having to like say everything. So that's where it started, and then it just kept rolling, and now like it's a lot of fun.
Over here, please.
Hi, I'm Shamba, and I was wondering, if you didn't get interested in ballet, what would your other career be?
If I like think of myself at 13 years old, I have no idea what my career would have been. Like, absolutely no idea. But at this point, like, having experienced all that I have and traveled and learned so much, and as you see in this book, The Ballerina Body, I love food and I love to cook. And so maybe a chef.
You can still do that.
I still could do that.
Over here.
Hi, my name is Savannah, and my question is, do you have any advice for any young dancers who just sometimes feel like giving up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important to remember why you do it. Like, if it's, you know, a friend or a parent or family member that's pushing you, maybe it's not for you. I think that to be a part of this art form, you have to be so passionate about it. And when you accept all of that, you just have to work really hard. Like, that's probably like the most direct piece of advice that I could give to anyone, even professionals that I'm around, is if you don't put in the work, it's not going to happen. You're not going to have the strength. You're not going to have the stamina. And, you know, it's not like we are television actors or something where we can just like read some lines and film it and then we're done. Like, this is something that you have to be prepared to perform for 3 hours at a time. It just takes so much commitment that I think that if you tell yourself and remind yourself that this is really what you want to do, hard work will get you there.
Hi, my name is Oliver, and I was wondering, what's your favorite technique to train in?
What's my, sorry, I didn't.
Your favorite technique to train in?
My favorite, so the way I was trained was like all over the place. So I didn't train in like Cicchetti or Vaganova. Like, I was just like, this is a tendu, this is a plie, put your head here and your arm here. So I'm actually very happy that I experienced training in that way, because I mean, unless you go to a very like specific company, it's more beneficial to be diverse and to really be able to do everything. And so, yeah, I'm open for all of it. And you should be too.
Over here, please.
Hi, my name is Fiona, and I saw you recently on World of Dance, and I was wondering if you think that's a good experience to build on during your dancing.
Yeah. I think the best part of those shows is that it's bringing dance to people's living rooms and exposing people or introducing people to dance that maybe had no interest at all in it. I think it depends on what type of dance you want to do. I think as a classical dancer, that may not be a necessary path to go on a show like that, because directors or artistic directors aren't watching World of Dance, like looking for talent. But if you're doing something more commercial, I think that it's a great opportunity to have that experience and have that exposure.
Well, I mean, so in some of the commercial things that you've done, it's also introduced people to you.
Right.
It's like a gateway to ballet. I mean, I was thinking the Under Armour ad, for example. I don't know, 8, 9, 10 million people at least have seen that, and which is quite a bit more than actually may see a ballet performance.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it's important, especially in the United States, where, you know, I would love more people to be going to the ballet, but a lot of people aren't. It's not really a part of our culture like it is in Europe. So I think that it's again, a gateway, I think, for people to be introduced to it and hopefully fall in love with it.
Yeah. Since we're on the subject of dance that you've done that's not with a ballet company, we didn't talk about the fact that you danced with Prince, right? Like,
yeah.
Tell me that was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the more time that goes by, I feel so humbled and grateful to have experienced that with him when I did, because I think that it was at a time when I was struggling in discovering who I am and how I fit in and belong in the classical ballet world as a black woman, and having him come into my life and be this example of what it is to be an individual and take risks. And he really empowered me to do that, that I didn't need to fit this cookie cutter mold, that I could succeed and still have my own voice.
And to transform the culture through that voice.
Yeah.
I have to just say.
I mean, one of the reasons, one of the big reasons that I wanted to work with him was because it was going to, so many people were going to see ballet that maybe never had seen it before. And it's amazing that to this day I have people that, you know, they come to the Metropolitan Opera House every season and they're like, well, I found out who you were from, you know, seeing you at Madison Square Garden with Prince, and now I'm a ballet fan. And it's like, that's why I did this. And it's amazing to see that, you know, growth and for that to have happened. And I am forever grateful and thankful for him for giving me the opportunity.
Bounce back over here.
Hi, I'm Bella, and I was wondering, what was your greatest accomplishment in your dance career?
Wow. Well, definitely becoming a principal dancer, because it is going to and has changed the course of the ballet world, I think, in the culture for so many minority dancers. For that reason, I think that title is so important. But I think performing the role of Firebird and having brought and exposed so many brown people to classical ballet, I think, is the most meaningful to me.
Yeah. Good evening, Ms. Copeland.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being you.
Thank you.
My name is Shirley, and I'm a writer. So I was wondering, getting back to what you were talking about earlier in terms of writing your books, the writing for your first book, did it come naturally, or like ballet, did you have to train yourself?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was very lucky to have a co-writer, Cherise Jones, who was extremely accomplished, and for us to have kind of gelled in the way that we did, it made it very easy. I think that the most shocking and surprising part to me was all of the editing that I wasn't prepared for. Like first writing, and again having all of the journals and everything, and again, like I love to write and put things down onto paper when I'm feeling them. But then going back and reading it all together, it was a little bit too much for me. and going through that editing process, I don't think that ever gets easy. So yes, it's work.
Please.
Hi, my name is Molly, and I was wondering how fast you go through Pointe shoes.
I wear a new pair of Pointe shoes every single day. But then I will save them and I will alternate depending on like the rehearsal that I'm doing. So if I'm maybe doing like Juliet, I'll wear a softer pair, one that's been worn a lot. If I'm doing Swan Lake, I'll need a really hard pair that's going to support my foot. But I go through about 10 a week.
Wow. Who makes yours?
Yeah, I've gone through many different makers and different shoes. Like when I was training, I was wearing Sanchas because they were the cheapest shoe at the time. So that was just kind of what everyone at my studio wore. But then once you become a professional, you don't have to pay for your shoes. The company pays for it. So it's just like, you know, whatever shoe will make your foot look best and whatever works for your strengths and weaknesses. So I wear blocks now. And they're really beautiful, but they break pretty quickly, so I have to use different things to keep them strong. So I'll use jet glue, and you put it in the tip of the toe, and it keeps them strong, lasting a little bit longer.
Pro tip. Over here, please.
Hi, my name's Jada. I work with Origination, and I wanted to know how much time do you spend practicing on your own?
On my own? Well, there's not a lot of time after like ABT's time, so it depends. So if I'm maybe in an off season, sometimes I just rent a studio and I just dance. Like, and they look at me, they're like, what is she doing here? And I just like to keep things going, but it's very often that I have that time to do that. During a rehearsal period, time that I spend like working on my own, I might go on my lunch break and do a private Pilates class and work on strengthening things that I can't really focus on in the chaos of the day where I'm just working on like rehearsing certain ballets. And I think people, they think like, oh, well, you're dancing all day, like you should be so strong, but when you're just dancing, you're not working things evenly. And I talk about it a lot in the book that, you know, it's important for us to still strengthen ourselves so that all of the small, tiny little muscles in every part of our body are strong and really ready for anything. And so the training aspect and the cross training is really an important part of what we have to do throughout the day on top of the 8 hours of rehearsal.
Wow. Over here, please.
Hi, my name is Kyla, and I was just wondering if you have any advice about how to dance better and safer with hyperextended knees.
That's a very good question. Yeah, I don't know if you guys know what hyperextended knees are. It's when your knee goes beyond straight, so it kind of curves that way. And though it's an asset in classical ballet, and it creates a really beautiful line. It almost extends it more and makes it look longer. It's extremely difficult. It almost makes you weaker, and it can be dangerous too if you kind of just sit into your knees and you don't have the support. And it's something that I've dealt with my entire career. I would say the first thing to do is never stand with your heels apart, if that's something that you do. It's not logical. It doesn't make any sense. Like, your weight is not going to be distributed in the right places, and that's probably one of the first steps you can do to strengthening the muscles in the back of your knee so that you're not sinking into your bones.
Here, please.
Hi, my name is Hope. I work with Origination, and I'm wondering how much do you spend dancing?
How much time?
Yeah, how much time do you spend?
So I'm off right now, so I get probably about 2 years off from American Ballet Theatre in a year, like collectively, like all at the same time. But I'll have weeks off here and there. But for the most part, I'm working 5 days a week for about 8 hours. But during a performance season, I'm working 6 days a week, sometimes 2 shows a day with rehearsals in between, or 5 hours of rehearsals and then a show in the evening. So it's a lot.
Over here, please.
Hi, I'm Carlina, and I was wondering if you have any advice for performing on stage as a dancer.
Yeah, I think it's as much as you want to perform for the people, that it's really about feeling feeling good in your skin. And being really aware of what you're doing and not worrying about what the audience is doing, what they're thinking, who might be there. Like that can be one of the first steps to having like stage fright, is when you're removed from what you're doing and you're not present and you're not in your body. And it's really easy for your mind to wander. Like as much as I perform, that happens all the time, especially when I was in the corps de ballet and you're just standing there on the side. And you're like, what am I going to eat tonight? And you're like, wait, I'm on stage. but it's important I think, to just be really focused on what you're doing, and that it's more enjoyable for you and for the audience.
These are sounding a lot like great life lessons overall. Over here.
Hi, my name is Alana. I dance with Origination. I was wondering, how hard was it for you to leave your family to go to New York?
To leave my family and move to New York?
To go to New York?
Yeah.
Yeah. How hard was it?
Initially, not at all. I literally, I remember, graduating from high school, and all of my friends were crying, and they were like, oh my gosh, I don't want to leave. And I was like, I gotta go, I gotta get on a plane. But then it set in, and it was really hard, going from living in a 1-bedroom apartment or a 1-room motel with my 5 siblings, and now I'm all the way on the other side of the United States, and I'm 17 and I'm by myself. And so I got really homesick. And so I would every summer literally pack up all of my stuff and come home for 2 months. I don't do that anymore. But but no, it was really hard. It was really hard in the beginning.
We have time for one more, so you'll be our last one.
Sorry.
I'm lucky. Hi, Misty.
Hi.
I was so, as a young person, I was so in awe of Dance Theater of Harlem. But I lived on the other side of the country. Mm-hmm. And I think you're from the other side of the country.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you would consider maybe, when you, at some point when you decide not to be dancing so much, to start something on that part of the country, mm-hmm. and that, would...
start something on the West Coast?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, for diverse dancers.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing. I don't know if the job is for me, but I'd love to be a part of it. I think, again, I'll forever be a part of, helping to move this art form forward, diversify it. But I don't know if artistic director is for me yet. Or running a school, that's a lot of work.
Part of your foundation.
It's a lot of work, and it takes a special person to be a teacher and to do all of those things. But I would love to be a part of doing something like that.
Well, everyone, Misty's going to be signing books in just a second or two. But I just want to say thank you so much for your artistry and your ambition and the change that you're bringing. It has been an absolute privilege to speak with you.
For me as well.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you.